I think I'm back. I've been kicked off of Skype, which mysteriously tells me my sound card isn't working, which is such great news because tomorrow's the marathon, and it's just really timing that, it must be what's meant to happen, but the show will go on. If I have to do it by the phone tomorrow, it'll go on. We'll be listening. Dave will be producing at Wolf Spirit. We open at 4 a.m. Pacific time for 2 hours in German, then we kick it off into English. And we've got a lot going on and a lot to say to help us to start to unite, to break through these belief systems that have us captured. Now, I'm not into either one of the chat rooms right now. I am seeing the Skype window here so that I can see if a question comes in. Dave will put it there. Thank you very much, Dave, at Wolf Spirit. We're going out also on United We Win. And, of course, thanks to Jeff Rentz and Rentz Radio for making this program possible, and to Charlie McGrath as well. Now, my next guest, I have been so looking forward to meeting and speaking with him because I have not done that yet. I've followed his work for a while, and his name is Larkin Rose. His website is larkinrose.com. That's LARKENROSE.com. And his most recent book is The Most Dangerous Superstition. And Larkin, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, I really have been looking forward to speaking with you, and I know that I was going to start by playing your latest YouTube, which is a message to the voting cattle, which may sound kind of offensive to some people, and it's a bit harsh, but unless we can really start to break through our conditioning, we won't be able to understand just how thoroughly and completely we have been had. And you said that you had something that you could read to us so that we can go straight to you, which I definitely appreciate. And I know that I can get the link again and put it in Skype, and Dave can put it in the other room for people who have not heard that particular rant. But I would like you to start off and read what it is you had there instead of...
May I say something? May I say something, please? Charlie says he has it queued up if you'd like to hear it played.
Well, it's 20 minutes, and that's why we're going to go with a shorter version straight from Larkin. But thank you, Dave, and thank you, Charlie.
This is basically a shorter and I think better excerpt. For a little bit of explanation, I'm not going to give the context or even the character, but this is actually from my novel, The Iron Web. It's one of the characters saying this. I'm not going to even give the context of what he's saying it or who it is. But this is from the same speech from the same character, even though it's a different part. I think it's better, and it's considerably shorter. So if people want 20 minutes more of this, they can go look up Message to the Voting Cattle. And yeah, this character is even nastier to people than I am. So it gets a little harsh. No naughty words or anything, but it's rather caustic at times. So without giving you the context or the character, here goes. This is from The Iron Web. If the founders could see you today, they'd be ashamed of you for the opportunity you threw away, the freedom you have so thoroughly squandered. Today, you tolerate a level of oppression and intrusion far beyond King George's wildest dreams, yet you cannot even imagine engaging in passive resistance, much less forcible revolution in defense of your own freedom. The bravest thing you'll ever do is walk into a booth every few years where no one can see you and press a button, say which of two slave masters you'd rather be owned by. And when some radical does suggest that it's time to grow a spine and resist this heinous empire, you all rush to be the first to condemn that person. Like well-trained slaves, you take pride in your subservience and obedience, while despising those few who have the will to try to escape the plantation. Land of the free and home of the brave? Hardly. You are a nation of enslaved cowards, afraid to act, afraid even to think. You keep telling yourselves that you, the American people, are independent, strong, brave, and free. You are none of the above. I don't expect one speech to change your narrow mind. Rear ends before you switch the channel to some inane trash approved by the Ministry of Truth, guaranteed to keep you distracted and stupid. I have something to say, and you had better listen close. Some of us still love freedom. Some of us believe that every person belongs to himself. We don't belong to your collective or to your crooked politicians, and we don't need your permission or legislation from your masters to be free. And if you want to parrot back the rhetoric you've been fed all your lives about how society can't exist without rulers, about how there would be death, destruction, and mayhem if no one was controlling all of us, you go right ahead. Predict doom and gloom until you're blue in the face. Tell us it can't be done all you want. And if time proves you right, you can feel smug in your little cages while you say, told you so. Or, if time proves us right, as it will, you can watch the second great American experiment from a safe distance and see what humanity could be without masters, without slaves, and without the false gods you now bow to. You wave your flags and give lip service to freedom, but you wouldn't know freedom if it slapped you in the face. You evade your responsibility as human beings by hallucinating a false god, the state, that relieves you of the duty to think for yourselves. You don't want to be free because being merely obedient requires so much less thought. And so you demand to be ruled. You insist on being enslaved. Then you beg your masters to please be nice to you. Pathetic. Well, some of us have outgrown such schizophrenic insanity. Some of us realize no election, no constitution, no legislation, and no other pseudo-religious political ritual can bestow upon anyone the right to rule another. Nothing can make a man into a rightful master. Nothing can make a man into a rightful slave. Using violence against someone who has committed no force or fraud is wrong. Some people call the concept libertarianism. I have another term for it, stating the bleeding obvious. It's wrong to start a fight. You can call the aggressors government. You can pretend that they represent us all. You can whine about the common good. You can label the bullies law enforcers, and you can call their violence law or regulation or taxation or whatever you like. It's still wrong, and some of us have been trying to explain this to you for centuries. Even when you can see the evils of a particular regime, you can't escape the mindset of authority worship. Your solution is always to find a new, kinder, wiser master. It never occurs to you that there is no such thing and can be no such thing as a good slave master. It never occurs to you to get rid of the tyrannical master of the day and replace him with nothing. He yanked the despotic king off the throne and to put no one in his place, to leave the throne empty. And so when the people tired of that delusional God complex, collectivist, warmongering, lying thief, George Bush Sr., they replaced him with Bill Clinton, a delusional God complex, collectivist, warmongering, lying thief. And when they got tired of him after 8 years, they put in yet another tyrannical Bush, this one worse than the first, for 8 more years. Even the spectacle of having to choose between John McHitler and Barack Stalin in 2008 wasn't enough to shake the American people out of their blind faith in the cult of democracy. A long time ago, Lysander Spooner explained that a man is no less a slave simply because he is allowed to occasionally choose a new master, but you didn't listen. You still believe that your precious right to vote means that you are free. It doesn't. It means only that your masters have found a way to trick you into not resisting by giving you the illusion that you have some say in what they do. H.L. Mencken told you that the urge to save mankind is almost always a front for the urge to rule, but you didn't listen. Time after time, crooks have posed as saviors, and you kept falling for it. Louis Brandeis, when he wasn't rubber stamping the politician's socialist agenda, warned that we should be most on guard to protect our liberties when the government's purposes are beneficent. But you weren't listening. Every new goodie, every promise to give something to the needy, to help this or that group, to save the economy, you fall for the all, hook, line, and sinker. 2,000 years ago, even Plato gave the warning, saying that every tyrant, when he first appears, is a protector. But you weren't listening. Frederick Douglass, a former slave, explained that no man can put a chain around the ankle of his fellow man without eventually finding the other end fastened to his own neck. But you weren't listening. listening. You all clamor to see who can be first to beg government to impose all manner of laws and rules upon your neighbors. And in the process, you end up advocating your own enslavement. Mr. Douglas also explained that whatever level of injustice and wrong people will quietly submit to is exactly the level that will be imposed upon them. But you weren't listening. Edmund Burke proclaimed that all that is necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. You've probably even heard that one, but you still didn't listen. Albert Einstein put it another way, saying that the world is a dangerous place to live, not because of the evil people, but because of the people who don't do anything about it. But you weren't listening. What have you done to resist the evils you see in the world, or even in your own country? Hide in a corner to avoid trouble? Keep your head down and try not to make waves? Sophie Scholl, member of the White Rose, an underground group in Germany which spoke out against the Nazis, described the situation quite well. The real damage, she explained, is done by the millions of people who just want to survive, the honest men who just want to be left in peace, who don't want their little lives disturbed by anything bigger than themselves, who don't want to make waves or make enemies. Sophie and her friends had their heads chopped off for daring to say such things, while the hordes of compliant cowards in Germany did nothing. And are you any different from them? You people who live in the land of the free and home of the brave, when have you lifted a finger to oppose the injustice you see? Or have you even noticed? Are you so busy getting along and doing what you're told that you can still imagine this to be a free country? Have you not noticed the trillions of dollars the American tyrants steal every year? Have you not noticed the millions of nonviolent people who now live as captives behind razor wire fences? Have you not noticed the hundreds of thousands of people abroad they have exterminated? Have you not noticed their tentacles creeping into every aspect of your lives? Have you been wearing your blinders for so long that you can't see what's going on all around you? As John Hay pointed out, and as millions of people have learned the hard way, the evils of tyranny are rarely seen except by those who resist it. Do you think the fact that you personally haven't gotten into trouble yet because you're too much of a coward to even rattle your own cage door means that you're free? Martin Luther King Jr., when he wasn't falling for collectivist propaganda, explained that true peace is not the absence of violence, but the presence of justice. But you weren't listening. You look around and you don't see the open strife and violent conflict that exists in many other countries, and you interpret that to mean that we have peace and freedom here. It means nothing of the sort. It means only that most of the victims of oppression here aren't resisting it. And that is not a sign that you are strong and free. It is a sign that you are weak and cowardly. Told, the violence underlying all government remains hidden. It is only resistance that brings it out into the open. The master doesn't need to whip the obedient slaves, but that doesn't mean those slaves are free. For millennia, radicals have been trying to tell you that as a human being, you were born to be free, that your rights do not come from any law or any government, and that it is your right and duty to preserve liberty for yourself, to allow others their freedom, and to never let the schemes and deceptions of would-be tyrants fool you into choosing the predictable, secure life of a caged animal over the uncertain, challenging life of a free human being. But you didn't listen. Well, some of us are tired of trying to get you to listen. We're not going to ask you to let us be free anymore. You can continue to choose slavery for yourselves if you wish. We choose freedom.
You've got to come out of your shell, Larkin, and tell us what you really think.
Yeah, I'm really holding back here. Again, for those who missed it, that's from the Iron Web, and that's a character who's even nastier than I am. I'm usually a little nicer than that.
And it's right on, and I am totally enjoying your book because I feel the same way. I don't have all of the research down that you have, but I know that it's a rip and that government is just a group of people who choose to call themselves government, which is a label that enables them to murder, lie, steal, subjugate, and experiment on us without our knowledge or consent and force us to comply by the men who wear uniforms who are also brainwashed into serving their masters.
Right, and the biggest challenge is that it's so easy and tempting and understandable for people to point their fingers at Washington, D.C. or the state capitol or some agency and say, they're the bad guys, they're the bad guys, they're the bad guys, because they are. Like, they do enough nasty, horrible things that obviously they deserve plenty of blame. What people don't understand is the real underlying problem is inside the heads of the victims of tyranny. Because if the people didn't hallucinate authority behind governments, if they didn't imagine that there was something legitimate about it, it wouldn't be there. That the power literally would dissolve if people didn't play along and act as if we have an obligation to bow to these people. They're just people. They're not nice people. They're not even average people. They're nasty crooks. But because people are taught to bow to authority and government, they really and truly, and this is the good people, this is the pro-freedom advocates, most of them still are of the mentality that the only way we'll ever be free is if we can convince government to write a law telling us we're allowed to be free. And if that's the goal, we're doomed before we even start.
It is really crazy, and it's why I keep promoting the idea of a full-on strike, a prepared strike, where finally we understand so much of the picture. We know that it's about eugenics and population control and war and profit and CEOs who walk away with billions while throwing good people who even have paid for their houses out into the streets because of MERS and electronic banking, and government who gives our money to the banks while telling us that murder is wrong, that theft is wrong, but when they do it, it's right.
Exactly. And it's, I mean, one of the most glaring examples to me was the quote-unquote bailouts, where government, left and right, steals $1 gazillion from the actual productive people and gives it to huge banks and corporations. And just about everybody got in an uproar about that and said, how could you do that? How could you do that? And it's, it's encouraging. At least they notice that there's something wrong with that. But my response is, what do you mean, how could they do it? 200 million people, imagine they have an obligation to pay quote unquote taxes and give the money to the politicians. And then we're surprised when the politicians don't do what we want. It's like if you volunteer your car to a carjacker and then are mad about how he uses it. Well, yeah, what he did was bad, but why the heck did you give him your car if you had a choice?
Yeah,
and
well, some of us don't even know we have a choice, and I'm not all the way through your book yet, but I keep making little folds in the pages because you have just so eloquently been able to really get down into what is the big problem that we have with breaking through the consciousness. And I want to get into the Milgram experiment, or the Milgram experiment, but I want to do that after the break because we've got a couple minutes before that here. I was very impressed, and it was kind of an aha moment to me because I, at times, too, keep thinking, what the frack is wrong with everybody? If they just would stop long enough to break the chain of tyranny, to do it at the same time, on the same day, step out of that system, form a chain of humanity, and do some research, they would not want to work. They would understand that out of every dollar that's taxed, all of it goes against us, and we're being stolen from and experimented on and poisoned each and every single day under the lie of government.
Yep, and that people believe they have an obligation. Even the people who say they want freedom, most of them say, well, I'll work within the system, which means I'll be a slave until the master tells me I don't have to anymore. Well, when's that going to happen?
Yeah, well, you're right, though. We are trained from birth all through school to sit, to obey, to raise our hands. And I'm not saying that there shouldn't be discipline, but there are better ways than a subservience and the mind control that we're taught in the revisionist historical institutions where we are forced to send our children.
Right, and people don't even, as Milgram demonstrated, which I guess we'll get to right after the break, people don't even understand how big an impact that has inside their own head. people imagine themselves to be a lot more free and able to act on their own than they really are, because they don't even know how strongly they've been indoctrinated.
All right, well, I hear the music right now, so it is time for a break, folks. You'll want to stay tuned to this next thing and learn about the Milgram experiment if you have not already. We're streaming on Rents Radio, United We Win, and also Wolf Spirit. We'll be right back. Take about 5 minutes and join us after the break.